Comparison of the classification of joints. Fibrous to cartilaginous. The fibrous joint allows no movement at all. This is different to the cartilaginous joint, as this allows slight movement in certain areas, such as an example of childbirth. The fibrous joint allows no movement as its main function is protection, such as the cranium. Its main focus is to protect the brain, so this is how its function is different to cartilaginous. The bone is held together by fibrous tissue, which holds the skull together. The cartilaginous joint does not have these fibres as its main function, so allow movement and flexibility, such as the vertebrae, as I explained previously. The cartilaginous joints need to have slight gaps filled with the fibre cartilage, in which it is a shock absorber. This is a positive for the vertebrae, as if they were not to have the shock absorbers, they could possibly break or get an injury from it. The fibrous joint and cartilaginous joints both change during childbirth by widening. The cartilaginous joint will widen to allow movement to aid childbirth, and the fibrous tissue will widen to ease the pain of childbirth, so the head isn't completely immovable. This is a similarity between the two joints. Both these things are positives for childbirth, as it allows it to be easier. When both joints become solid, it is a positive, as they are less likely to become damaged. For example, in rugby, when they're constantly flying into tackles, really hard-hitting contact sport, if the the joints in the skull were weak, it would damage the brain, which would obviously not be a good thing. This could also occur in the vertebrae. Again, in rugby, if you fall kind of awkwardly, or you get tackled from behind, which does happen sometimes, you could take a lot of damage in that area because of the hard contact. Cartilaginous and synovial. Both of these joints are surrounded by different types of cartilage. The cartilaginous joints are held together by articular cartilage, and this is vital in preventing friction, whereas the ends of the bones in synovial are covered in cartilage. This does not bind them together, but acts as a slippery surface as well as a shock absorber. Cartilaginous joints also have this shock absorber. It is called articular cartilage and is essential in preventing friction. This is necessary, as if we didn't have the cartilage shock absorbers, the bones would grind on each other, and then they would become misshapen and could also cause a lot of pain in the area and damage. Synovial joints have various joint movements depending on which specific joint, such as the condyle joint allowing the abduction, adduction, flexion, extension, and subduction. Whereas the cartilaginous joints have a much more limited range when compared. The highly maneuverable movements are great for various sports, such as high jump, long jump, gymnastics. This is because the body has to get into awkward positions. The ball and socket joint at the hip, for example, allows a big range of movement, so that when a gymnast wants to do a cartwheel or a splits, they can move their legs. However, the cartilaginous joint would not have the ability to do this, which makes it a negative factor. Fibrous or synovial. The range of movement in the two areas are severely different, as a fibrous joint does not allow any movement at all. Well, as a tiny little amount, but not very much. The synovial have large ranges of movement, as we've already discussed. For example, the hinge joint at the foot allows dorsal and plantar flexion. The cranium is a great example of this, as it provides no movement. This is due to the skull needing to be solid and protect the brain. As if it was not as solid, as we could damage our brain, and that's obviously bad, that can have life-threatening impacts. Synovial joints are the opposite and need to be maneuverable, as it's their main function. Synovial joints are held together by ligaments because of this, so the muscle can move to the bone to create the movement. Both will not allow friction to occur. Fibrous joints are fixed in place and have little to no movement, so friction wouldn't really be a problem for these joints. However, synovials move a lot, so friction can be a problem. This is why articular cartilage is at the end of the bones, acting as a lubricant as a shock absorber. This is a big positive, as it stops the bones from rubbing together and causing problems for that person. If this friction was allowed to happen, people might find their range of movement more limited. And if this did happen in the shoulder joint, for example, it could mean that a cricket player wouldn't be able to bowl as fast or as accurately. Okay, now we'll compare the synovial joints. Condyloid and hinge. An example of the condyloid joint is a wrist. This allows extension, flexion, adduction, and circumduction to occur, in which the hinge joint does none of. This is great for darts players, so they can become precise in their movements. Those fine motor movements are really important in darts, so this joint will allow you to kind of adjust your shot as you wish. An example of the hinge joint will be in the ankle, in which it has a limited movement with only plantar and dorsiflexion. So you know when you move your ankle, it doesn't move very far. This is because of the hinge joint, stopping you from moving it out of position too much. When we compare the ranges of movement at the wrist and the ankle, there's a very small amount to manoeuvre in. This is why the ankle is filled with muscle, so to provide more gross movement when compared to the fine wrist movements. This is essential for everyone, as they need to have a strong base to hold them on and to allow movement to occur. Football sees a lot of benefits from the hinge joint of the ankle, as it allows people to get to a lot of power on the ball and also to kind of aim their shots. People want to put curve on it or outside of the boot. That sort of thing is all done thanks to the hinge joint in the ankle. Pivot and ball and socket. The pivot joint is a round-headed bone fitting into a ring-shaped bone, such as the neck. The specific joint is surrounded by muscles. This is due to the head needing to be supported. The only movement that occurs in the pivot joint is rotation. Another joint that can rotate would be the ball and socket. It also does extension, flexion, adduction, abduction, and circumduction. These joints are similar, but the ball and socket has a larger range of movement than the pivot, and which is a positive for a gymnast, as they will often have to contort their arms in awkward positions to score more points, and need a large range of movement. This is done by flexibility. Flexibility is easier the less muscle you have in the affected area. The pivot joint at the neck is surrounded by muscle, and obviously this is for obvious reasons to keep the head upwards and on our shoulders, and make sure it's protected, as there's a bit of the spinal cord in there, as well as, the head's an important part of the body, so if that can be damaged, then it's not a good thing. For example, in football, when heading a ball, the head needs to have a strong base to create power, as well as stability when doing that movement. And also, so that's a positive. But a standing header, for example, when the ball comes to you, because you can't generate loads of power, because there's not a big range of movement, it can be a negative as well. Saddle and condyloid. Both these joints share the same movement: extension, flexion, abduction, and circumduction. An example of two are the wrist and thumb joints. One difference between the two is that a saddle joint needs the touching surfaces of two bones that have both a concave and convex curve, whereas condyloid does not. Both of these joints work in unison to do various tasks. Again, using the example of darts, there's a lot of fine motor movements in this sport, and it requires the players to get precise movements. Both the wrist and the thumb play a part in this, due to the thumb gripping the dart and the wrist flicking as the dart is released from the hand. This allows the movements in the joints in the hand allow these movements, so you kind of get more power and direction, and so the dart is more accurate, so you get a better performance overall.